just want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us today. Now, we know that you're not necessarily afraid of new features, but we understand that there's some hesitancy to implement features or solutions that might disrupt your workflows. But we're not going to let that happen with the features that you're going to see Trent present to us today. Now, I also want to take a moment just to thank everyone who voted for us in the Relativity Innovation Awards. We are honored to be the first ever winner of the Best Innovation Developer Partner Award. Now, let's begin by going through our agenda. First, I'm going to share some information about our customer advocacy team, not just Trent and I who are presenting today, and then we'll talk about what we mean when we say reviewer first. From there, I'll turn it over to Trent, who will give us a live demo of Find and Redact and suggested redactions. After that, we'll have a Q&A where you can ask us questions, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. After the call today, we'll send out the webinar recording along with the slides, which will include some additional resources that you won't necessarily see up on your screens today. So let me get started by introducing the customer advocacy team. Now, these are the people that you talk to when you reach out to support. You can feel free to add Trent and I to your LinkedIn to connect with us further. Now, as you look at the pictures on the screen, if you see anyone that you recognize or you recognize any names, feel free to give them a shout out in the chat, and we're going to let them know just how much you appreciate them. So now that you know the team, I want to explain what we mean by reviewer first. When we were developing these features, there were three core components that we had in mind. The first is knowing that you had the expectation to start and complete your work quickly. We know that reviewers want to get to work right away with features that are consistent and don't add unnecessary complexity to your workflows. Additionally, we understand that image documents still dominate review. Now, out of the documents that have been redacted with blackout, over 50% of those were images. So with that in mind, we wanted to introduce powerful features to help you efficiently redact those images. Lastly, we know that cost considerations remain king. So with these new features, we help you save time, reduce the amount of effort put into image review, and get to the QC stage even faster. That means that you can spend the time saved elsewhere and save money while you review images quickly and efficiently. Now, before we jump into the live demo with Trent, I just want to take a quick poll. How many of you today on the call have used one or more of these features that we'll be looking at today? So if you've used these, feel free to use an emoji reaction to let us know. So I'll give it a few seconds. We'll let those roll in. I see a whole bunch coming in. Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to see that these features are really being used. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Trent, who's going to lead us through our live demo today.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey. We'll switch over to our relativity instance here. All right, so yeah, first off, again, just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time today. Our first webinar, we think we got a great topic here, so we really hope that you also find the content today, what we'll be showing, and some of the stuff that Jeffrey just touched on. We hope you find that helpful. Again, our first webinar, so would love feedback for any ideas in the future. We'll, as Barrett and Jeffrey mentioned, we'll send the recording and a short survey. One of those questions will be any topics or further questions you have. So definitely would love ideas for future topics to do another one of these. So with that, let's get into how your teams can leverage the new Blackout Reviewer First functionality with Find and Redact and suggested redactions. We want to provide these features that are going to streamline your workflows for your reviewers, embed them directly into your current workflows, and really make your reviewers, not change their current habits or, implement new processes that you have to do, and really just kind of start using these features exactly what they're doing today. So kind of before I jump in, what are some common things that we're doing in our manual image review? We've got what we'll look at today. We've got some images and a couple of Word docs that have some PI on them. But what you guys are working with, right? Lots of emails, lots of terms you need to redact, people's names, common info that's just buried within a document, maybe contextual information that you need to find, on a document with lots of pages, lots of text, right? So some things that aren't just something you can run a project on. And then so what personal information, right? The popular thing that everyone wants to find, people's names, socials, emails, account numbers, and even dates. So we're going to show you some tools with find and redact and the suggested redactions on how we can help you guys find that important data. So let's go ahead and begin. As a reviewer, I've been given my batch of documents, right? And what you're looking at here is, a 25-page image document. And, to get started, before kind of looking at these features, I need to go in and redact some documents. So I'm going to select my markup type. I'm going to use highlights here. And we're just going to start drawing boxes, right? So, a lot of what you're doing today is you're coming in and you're just kind of highlighting the terms that you need, the information that you need to redact. I might have a sheet of paper that's got some rules on the side, and I'm just scrolling through this document trying to find those rules and that terms, right? So I've got some things here that I'm looking to capture. See, I also just want to kind of, maybe let's get New York Times. That's another important term here. So you can see that, right? I got to read through this 25-page document. So what can we do with Blackout's new reviewer first features, find and redact, and then the suggestions? We're first going to start off with find and redact. Up here in the top right, you'll see the find and redact search bar. So we want to find those kind of terms that we've been looking for. We can, we're going to start with an example of finding someone's name. But that's not the only use case you can use the find and redact search for. You can type in terms. You can type in DT searches are another helpful thing that you can find there. And when we're searching for names, you can type in, right, you'll look at the example here of the person we're going to be looking for. What are their nicknames? What are their emails? What are their full names? What are middle names? Things that they might be called, right? Instead of searching through this, I can use find and redact to go find those in the document. You need to find proximity terms, so we can use DT search for that. We might need to find those contextual tips, so we'll look at an example there as well. So the first example, like I mentioned, we're going to look for somebody's name. James Glassman is going to be our target person today. So I'm just going to start off and write James Glassman. I'm just going to start off by typing his name. I'm going to change my markup color here. And let's use orange so we know which ones we use to find and redact for. So we'll hit the enter. And as I go through here, Jim is another name that might be found in this document. You can already see I've kind of typed in some things here. So let's do Jim within 2 of Glassman. We might have a middle name or something in there. So I can just start typing all these in, right? Let's do Glassman. And let's see, I also know Jim's email here. So we are going to do jglassman@aei.com. Nope, we're at .org. So you can see here, just by simple searches, right? I just look for his nicknames. I look for Jim. I look for James. I look for his full name, emails. So just right there, kind of found, how many different hits did we just find? So you can look through here, and down at the bottom in your markup review pane, you're going to start seeing those results pop up. So to start off here, with all those searches I just did, I want to look at the options here, right? So you can see the first ones that I drew manually. And then as I scroll down, you're going to find the ones from find and redact. So I want to do a little QC check to make sure the things that Blackout found are actually the hits that we want, right? So on page 2 here, I see there's just a Jim, right? Not 100% sure if that's Jim Glassman. So let's jump to page 2. We see our orange highlights. That's Jim Barlow, not the one we want. So what we do here is we just go in and we hit the reject button, and let's remove those hits. Page 10 here, Glassman seems pretty likely, but let's just double check and make sure there's not another person with the name Glassman in here. Yes, that is. So didn't find the James K. Glassman. So as I see that, I might want to come in here and just, let's go ahead and complete that redaction, right? We need to redact that, right? So you see that quick QC, found the term, checked that it was redacted, it wasn't, so I drew that redaction quickly, right? Still faster than me scrolling through and reading this document and making sure I find them all. So let's go through here. I've got one more Jim. Okay, another Jim Polson, so not our Jim, right? So right there, I've already kind of completed our searches for Jim Glassman. So I can kind of read through here a little bit. If I maybe, I found another one, I saw that James K. Glassman. So let me just type that in to make sure there aren't any other hits there. Excellent. And we actually did get another hit. So that's good there. So that's kind of the rechecks you can do if you're finding some of your searches that aren't necessarily covering the terms that you want. You find one, go ahead and type it in, and hopefully you can find that hit. So just kind of your first example, right? You can see on a 25-page document, we're looking for somebody's names, and you can just imagine if I had a list of 10 or 15 people's names, how much quicker I can get through that than trying to read through and look at my paper and look at all the different aliases. I can just come in, type them in real quick, hit enter, and go through them all, and then do this quick last pass. So as I pause there for a second, just kind of, if you give a reaction, if you've used that for finding names, if that's something that you've needed before, that you wish you had that option, if you can give a thumbs up or a heart in the screen, and we'll kind of jump on to our next example. All right, so we'll scroll back to the top of our document where we're at. So again, right, we've got some company names. You might have some drug names, law firms names, other people's names. So we're just going to come in here. We've got our Enron one, right? That's a popular one on our document that we've seen. So I drew a few of the Enron hits, but let's go ahead. I know there's a lot more. So just with that one search, I just placed 142 markups right there. So just found that in that document. So that's where you can really see the power of the find and redact. So let's go see. There's a couple more in here. We'll look for Quanta, there's 17. And then another one here is Dow Jones. Let's search for that. So, if you've got, spreadsheets that are image or just tables in there, you can kind of scroll through here, use that find and redact on these images and highlight these, redact these, however you'd like, but a lot quicker. So just with those 3 different searches right there, right, I just added another 200 markups that I would have had to draw by hand. Okay, so we'll go through here. Let me go back through and I just want to look at some of these Enrons so we can type in and we can filter on our rule, right? So I've got 142 Enrons in there. Let me look at the Quanta ones. Team comes back and said, we did not want that term redacted. So what you can do is you can use the rule that identified those and drew that markup. And I've got 17 hits here. So I can just real quickly reject those 17 terms. Just by a quick search and click of a button. I don't have to go through again, select them all and delete them all or find another way to delete them. So another useful way to leverage blackout and the find and redact features there. Okay, so last thing I need to do on this document is I need to find something related to some contextual blocks of text. These might be copyright information, trademarks, contract clauses, maybe some real life examples there. For this example, I'm going to use copyright. So I know there's some content around the word copyright on this document that I need to read the text around it and see if we need to redact anything. So we'll come in here, just found my hits. So let's find where copyright is placed. So I'm going to jump to page 3 here. And we'll find the copyright. Okay, so Dow Jones, right? I know the copyright is around Dow Jones, and I also know it is around the New York Times Company. So here's another copyright information that didn't hit, but I can look for those. So in my copyright blocks, I need to make sure I'm getting all these terms, right? So you can kind of see like maybe more real life would be like trademark information or contract clauses, there's like a keyword or, when you're some of the legal jargon, right? You can use those words to find the terms and context that you actually need to redact by just identifying a word where that's at in the document. So that's kind of the example there. So we can go through. Let's go on to, page 7, jump to another page. got my these. Okay, so this copyright doesn't have the New York Times or Dow Jones, so I'm good on that one. Let's jump into our next one. And we've got some more Dow Jones here. And no more New York Times, right? So just right there, we're just kind of jumping in the document, kind of using that find and next, find and next, find and next, using our search down here. So super helpful to get through this document quickly here with 25 pages. All right. So that's all I needed on this first document. I've kind of, glazed my eyes over it. There's nothing else that we need. So let's look at kind of the next, some additional features and functionality and look at, how suggestions start coming into play. So I've done all that work. You've seen the terms that I've been redacting. We'll go on to our second document. So what you can see right away, as this loads nice and fast for me here, is on the right side is our suggested redactions pane. So all that work that I've been doing, Blackout is processing that. And now when I go to my next documents, it's going to start suggesting those terms to me right away. So skipping a step of actually typing those into the find and redact. So the Enron hits, right? Let's use a different color up here. And now all I have to do is click the term for the redaction to be placed. So hit all the gems were rejected, so those will not be suggested to me, right? Because they weren't the right person. I can do the same thing here on copyright. This might be a different document, so I still want to use that copyright context to jump to the document here. So we'll get all these, get our pop-ups out of the way, highlight our Dow Jones. Danny McCarty was another one, so you can also see how the suggestion did not come through on that one. So I need to redact this one again. And once we kind of hit that threshold of having 2 or more markups on a term, Blackout will start suggesting those to you. So that's kind of the key there of why a suggestion or term wouldn't show for you. All right, so we've got those there. You can see how quickly I just placed all those markups. If you have duped documents, this should be as simple and quick as clicking through your suggestions. So we'll go to document 3, right? I've got my Danny McCarty now showing as a suggestion. So let's go ahead and finish this document. We'll go on to our 4th one. All right. And our 5th document. So what else can we do here? Some other things we can do with find and redact. It's not always terms. You saw a proximity I did with the James Glassman, so you can use proximity searches, a word within 2 or a number of a different word. But we can also use some other DT search syntaxes. One is, one common one might be let's redact all the emails. So we saw that James Glassman, his email was the aei.org. We need to redact all those domains. So what I can do is come in here and I can type in the DT search that is mail, and then inside the parentheses, we will type in what we want to hit. So aei.org, hit the enter button there, and that will go search there. So we just have the one Jim Glassman hit on this document, so we're good. Now we can also redact all of our Enron emails, but we want to redact every single email. So just simply broad-based wildcard DT search mail with the asterisk, and that will get all the emails on the document. So hitting terms, DT searches here, using highlights, using your redactions, a lot of flexibilities that you can do. And then definitely, I think the additional powerful kind of step that comes in is using this filtering and the rejecting to kind of pinpoint the contextual aspects of the document that you need to review, which is, a lot of times what we hear is, we can't run projects because we need to read the document. So that's where these kind of workflows that we're showing you today should be very helpful. All right. One last example here is some dates. If you're not familiar, DT Search has an automated date recognition. So what I want to look for is I want to highlight and find all the dates in November of 2001. So I do the date syntax, and then inside my parentheses, I'll do November 1, 2001 to November 30th, 2001. Hit enter there. And the nice thing with this search is that it will find all the different date formats. So you can see here on the very top, right, you see two different formats already hit there. So you don't have to find each individual exact term that it's written. You can type those date ranges or a specific date to find those. Birthdays, contract dates, right? Another context helper is I need to find some information around this date. A lot of times you'll see an email that is a threaded PDF or something that's image that has 1,000 pages of just a huge email thread, and maybe you need to jump to a certain date. You can find those in there and highlight those, easily get to that date every single time, and you're back to that document. So a lot of helpful things you can use the date syntax for as well. Okay. And then our last example. So before we kind of get into some of those QCs and some things to be aware of, the ever popular is PI. So we've got covered the email one, but we also have social security numbers. How do I redact social security numbers? As long as you have the nice easy format, DT search also provides an easy syntax here. And I'm going to change my color again. So just the number sign with that format is your syntax for your social security number. So if I want to add in, the hyphen, type in that, hit enter. No matches found there. Guess it didn't like my hyphens. We'll find it over there. And I guess today it does not want to find my social security number, so that's awesome to see. But anyway, so I'll kind of skip over that. But basically, for some reason, no clue why that's not hitting my social security numbers, but that would find the social security number pattern. So that is the DT search syntax there for that pattern. So should be working, but sorry for that. Of course, the demo-itis shows up on the live webinar. So that's great to see. But moving on, I want to still redact my emails here. So you can see just a different format. It's not an email. So let's do kind of our email. So we're going to type in, we want to redact all the emails on this document. All right, so there we go. So we've hit all of our emails. You can see those kind of show up with our different hits. You see the rule that it was found and the pages that they're on. So similar things there as you go through and redact that. So now we're kind of like finished, right? You've seen kind of the different things you can do with find and redact with the suggestions, how they're showing up. But as we wrap up, we need to do a little bit of QC. There might be some new suggestions. Some of the last documents I did might have some new terms that maybe we didn't find on the first documents. So what we want to do is we want to kind of like jump back to the very beginning and what might we be seeing here different, right? Might see new terms. Blackout might give us new suggestions. There might be things that we found on the other documents that we need to reject. Maybe we know a little bit more, or some other terms that we want to type in on find and redact to see if they're on this document. Just some, random searches here. So let's see, did we find Trent? We know we had it on that last document. Do we have any social security numbers that it doesn't want to work here either? So we'll type those in. So you're just kind of going back through the beginning, new suggestions that were created. When you go back to your previous documents, that suggestion term over here should be a little bit lighter, right? I've already placed redactions on these, so it shouldn't probably be suggesting as much as I'm going back through. So these should just kind of be the target ones that we need to make sure are cleaned up, or if we need to kind of remove something. So, if November 17th should not be redacted on this document, we need to make sure that there's nothing down here, with that date. So if we type in 2001 down here, great, we're good. There are no markups with the 2001 hits. So some different kind of QC steps. And then lastly, just making sure that everything that you need rejected is rejected. So for example, we don't want to produce the document with the copyright markup, right? That was just a search that we were using to kind of identify that. So I want to come in here and do our copyright. Now I want to reject that. So that's kind of one cleanup step you might do if you 100% need to get that markup off the document. All right. So that wraps up all the redaction work. Batch is completed, just redacted, 25 documents here in 15 minutes. Got a lot of markups drawn. So you can kind of see, hopefully you kind of see that power. Hopefully the examples that we saw, were helpful. Hopefully the social security number syntax does work. I promise it does. We've tested this 100 times, so apologize for that mix up there. But anyway, hope you guys all found that helpful. And that kind of brings me to the end of the demo. And Jeffrey, if you can show us what's next.
Sure. Thanks, Trent, for going ahead and showing us all those use cases. Now, before we go through this slide, I just want to remind everyone one more time before we go to the Q&A to send your questions over to Barrett in the chat or the Q&A section. Now, on the slide that we're currently looking at, this is a recap of what we just went over. This slide is going to be sent as a PDF that will be sent along with today's recording that can serve as a reference for how Find and Redact and redactions can help you meet reviewer first expectations. Now, we hope that we showed you how these features are ready to use on day one. You can start using them easily and quickly without, quote, fear that you'll compromise your image work. So with that, Barrett, what is our first question?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that we've had a lot of great questions in the chat. Our head of product, Tim Randall, has been jumping in and answering those. So be sure to give the chat a look. I'm going to pull these and put them into a slide so that we can PDF those so everyone will have answers to the questions that were asked. Just for one point of clarity, we are on 5.1. That was one question that was asked that I'm going to make sure I call out the answer to here. Another question that we just received that I want to make sure that we get to early was, are there any specific metrics or KPIs used to measure the quality or accuracy of the suggested redactions? And I feel like maybe we should give Tim a little time to respond to that. And I can jump to some of the ones that were sent ahead of time. Trent, does that sound?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I think the short answer is no specific metrics or KPI that I have off the top of my head. So yeah, that might be a better question for Tim, or if we don't have the answer right away, maybe that's something we can share along and include. But I'm not 100% sure that we have specific information on that.
We also had a question about these images. Have they been OCR'd?
Yeah, great question. The images have been OCR'd with the blackout OCR. So all the functionality for find and redact and the suggestions functionality, similar to your image automated projects, blackout does generate its own OCR for that. Larger image documents will need a preparation to run those through a project first. So that's kind of another step to prepare for your case. If you do have a lot of documents with 10 plus pages is the default threshold.
Thank you. So we have had a few questions about social security numbers, not to put you on blast for the glitch that we couldn't control. But if I'm recalling correctly, maybe you can confirm, we can use the DT search syntax in Find and Redact for those type of numbers, whether it's a social security number or a bank routing number. Longer numbers like that should respond to DT search. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So through the Find and Redact search, the DT search syntax should work. Like I mentioned, that worked 100 times before. And then also the regex isn't supported with DT search. So if you do prefer the regex route, that will be done through an automated image project.
Is there a way to find if a document has suggested redactions outside of reviewing doc by doc in the image viewer?
That's a good question. In the UI, no, there is not. If that is something that your team is leveraging and you're looking to find some of that information, again, email us at support, and our team, can, I think, pretty sure that we'd be able to help try and track down that information for you.
And does the Blackout migration project support images not redacted in Blackout as well as images redacted in Blackout, or only images redacted in Blackout?
Yeah, so the question here is a different automated project type. So if you're not familiar with that, there is a projects, a kind of bulk automated project page in Blackout. And one of the projects is the ability to migrate markups either to another workspace or within the same workspace to migrate your markups to another document or another markup set. It does support on your images, it will migrate and move all the markups, even the non-blackout markups.
So Tim answered a question in the chat about some measures for protecting data, but I think maybe a simpler way to ask a similar question that we received was, can the other reviewers see the markups that people are placing when they're using suggestive redactions? Or is that protected and shielded from other individuals or people in other workspaces? How does that work?
Yeah, so maybe to point that out on kind of what that question is referring to is, let me just open this up. So over here on this suggested redactions pane, what comes through by default is just the work that I'm placing. So only the markups that I was doing physically today are what I will see show as suggestions for me. There is a workspace level setting where I can change this to all reviewers. So if we were all collectively working in this workspace together and I change that setting, you would see all the suggestions from everyone. They're shared suggestions. A good example is if you just trust your review team or you have a tight knit review team, you know the content and you just want to share it to make everybody's lives a little easier and have the suggestions show up. That's one example. Another use case, maybe the more important one, would be like if you have an expert reviewer, maybe like a partner's going in, you don't know what needs to be redacted, so you get some samples to a partner or something and let them do some redactions first, and then keep that to all reviewers. Then the review team then coming in will get those suggestions from that expert reviewer or that partner. So kind of a couple, maybe two, maybe a couple other use cases, but I think those are like two pretty big use cases of why you would want to flip that setting.
And this question, I think, kind of straddles two of our previous questions, but will be good to answer specifically. Can you review the markups that Blackout's suggested redactions will create before they are created?
At the current time, the action to place the find and redact and suggestions is placing a markup. We will be looking at a feature, hopefully kind of the next feature will be that concept, right, of kind of what you see more on word processors today, where it's a find and next. You're not placing that action, you can approve it and then do like a yes, redact and next, or a redact all. So instead of the action just being a place redaction action, it will be a more streamlined kind of see all the hits, find your search results, and going through and let you make the decisions of what needs to actually have that redaction placed.
Great, thank you. This is another question that we received in advance, somewhat unsurprisingly, I'm sure to most of you on the call. Blackout is great with Excel, especially native Excel. It's the only native Excel solution for relativity. Will we be bringing find and redact and suggestive redactions to Excel documents in relativity?
Yeah, I think a good follow-up to the answer to the last question of some of the improvements and features that we still want to incorporate in the feature sets just for the images we have now. And then the next piece is, once the image find and redact and suggestions are in a fully kind of feature rich set that we like, then we'll move that over into Excel as kind of a V2 of the feature set.
Great, thanks. We also had a question about how do we enable the features that we were going to show today. Again, that's upgrading to the latest version 5.1. You can reach out to support@milyli.com and request your wrap file. Probably best to have your team lead do that. But yeah, that would be how you have these features activated in your workspaces. One final question in the chat, unless we receive any others. But this one is for your own or your separate DT search indexes that are being used. Are there noise or stop words like relativity's DT search index?
Yep, good question, common question. there is just the default DT search noise word and alphabet list, I believe, is the answer to that. So it is not overlapping with any of the relativity DT search indexing. Blackouts is kind of the just the default out of the box DT search settings.
Yes, and we had one question about credit card numbers, if we could use DT search for that, and I think we covered that as well. So I think that's the end of our questions, unless, oh, one more. Will there be additional sessions like this one scheduled in the near future?
Yeah, so yeah, we hope to. This is our first webinar. It was a lot of fun putting together. Again, I can't thank you all enough for the attendance. We got a couple more slides to wrap up here with Jeffrey. But yeah, that on the next or on the survey, giving you suggestions. If it's a second session of this that you want to have again for other team members, but you want to have it live, that's totally cool. Or if you want your team to see something live, you can certainly schedule a training with us. Trainings are free. Our team loves working with you guys. So if, the more trainings, the better, we say. So yeah, feel free to schedule a training or give those suggestions on topics for our next webinar.
Great. And we did have a question about whether or not we would be able to provide a download of the recording. We'll send a link to a YouTube link, and we'll also have the slides with some additional information, sort of the unspoken content, as well as a recap of this really robust Q&A. I'm going to comb the chat and drop that into a slide so that you all have the answers to some of these really great questions. So I am going to hand it back to Jeffrey to close us out with some, takeaways and marching orders. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Trent. Thanks, Barrett. And I want to thank everyone again that came to the webinar for all your questions today. I also want to just give a quick shout out to the perks of being a Blackout customer. Trent alluded to some of these already, but just to sort of reiterate, as a Blackout customer, you will get all of our support materials. That includes videos, one-pagers, guides, free training that you can customize to fit your needs, free Blackout certifications for current customers, and live ticketing and support. And when I say live ticketing and support, that means that we don't use AI and we don't use chatbots. Whenever you are talking to us, you're speaking to a real live person. Now, to wrap up today, we have a few next steps for you. Again, we're going to send out a very quick 3-question survey after the call, and we'd love it if you can take that survey. That's going to help us decide what to feature at our next webinar. Additionally, as we've mentioned a few times before, we're going to send out a recording of the webinar as well as a packet that includes the slide deck from today's call. Lastly, we would love it for you to start using these features that you saw today. Again, if you have questions or you want to schedule a training session for these features just to see them again a little more in depth, please feel free to reach out to myself. You can reach out to Trent, or you can simply open up a ticket with us, and that's going to be by emailing support@milyli.com. Again, thank you all. A huge thank you for coming out and joining us today, and we hope you have an excellent, wonderful day.